Sticking with the theme of student engagement, I wanted to show you some activities that allow you to engage your students in a variety of ways in the Nearpod platform. I'm starting with a video that I added to my Nearpod lesson. This is based on wonders. In this video, when I'm playing it in student participation, obviously they'll watch it on their own devices. In the live lesson, you can choose to allow your students to watch the videos on their own device or watch it through your device on a Google Meet. In this case, on the left-hand side, you can see the teacher's view. On the right-hand side is the student view. I have allowed my students to watch the video on their own devices. Give them a few minutes to do that, and it will play. Then I can move on to the questions, the other activities. This activity happens to be an open-ended question. What I did here was I asked the question and I also added an image for my students to show their observation or to think about their observations while looking at this picture. You can add video, you can add an image to open-ended questions. Once I close that, I'll have my text box available so I can write my observation here and then submit it to my teacher. Now, as the teacher view, you should see that I've submitted my answer. And you can either hide your student names or show student names here. If you wanted to show your screen to your students, but you didn't want them to see whose answers were written here, you could certainly hide their names. This share button allows you to share the answer to the student's device, and then you can unshare. The next activity is also an open-ended question. And this activity goes along with the essential question and wonders for this lesson. I added the image from the Wonders book of the essential question. The students can write their answers here. And you can see which students are participating and what their answers are. The student submits their answer, and you can see that on your screen. And then once you see your students have participated, you can move on. This activity is a draw activity. So the student can interact with the slide by writing right onto the slide. In this case, they can choose to use a marker, and you can even change in a thick marker or a thin marker. They can highlight if you have text here you wanted them to highlight. They can add a text box to interact, or they can add an image if that's something you wanted them to do. So here I'll add a text box, move it here. Oops. And then they submit their answer, and you can see here in real time, you can see what the students are doing. You can click on a student's answer and see exactly what they've written. Again, you can share it to their device if that's something you wanted to do, and you can close it when you're done. These next couple slides are also draw slides, so that students can choose to interact with the text. The next activity I've chosen is called the slideshow within your Nearpod slideshow. Now this activity allows the students to go through each slide on their own, even in a live participation lesson, as long as you haven't gone to the next slide yet. So if you keep it here for a while, the students can go through each vocabulary word to try to remember them and learn them before they get to their matching pairs, interacting with each slide on their own pace, again, until you switch to the next slide. This is the matching pairs slide. I use this to assess what words they know and understand based on the vocabulary in the last slideshow. So we can click here and choose the answers. And then you can see on your view that the students have matches and how many tries they had while completing this work. You can also view the pairs if you need your answer key. And then once the students are done, you can move on to the next activity. This activity is a collaborate board. So what this does is allow your students to collaborate together on the student or the teacher view, but they can write their answer on their own device. You also can choose here to approve students before they post. So you'll have to allow the post if it's appropriate. If not, you can delete it. So as the student, I'll write my answer here. Post it. Pending approval, as the student can see, and then the teacher has to choose whether or not it's approved, and then the answer will be posted. Students can also add an image to the Collaborate board. They can search an image, choose it, save it, and then post that as well. It's a great way to have everybody engage in the learning and show it together as a community. This is another Draw It activity where I have taken the graphic organizer sequence of events and added it to the Draw It as an image. And now my students can answer the question by adding a text box onto each box and writing their sequence of events after reading the story. They'll type right in the text box. They can make it fit onto the text box. And again, you can see the progress over here. You can click on your student's work to see what they're writing. And then your student will have to submit his or her work. And then you can go on to the next slide, which this one is the poll slide. So you can ask your students a poll question. Once they have answered the question and submit it, you will be able to share the results with your class. It shows a circle graph of information. If we had more than one person, obviously it would probably not be 100% agree. You'd get to see all of your students' answers and share those results with them. The quiz is the next activity I wanted to show you to help your students engage in Nearpod. The quiz allows you to assess your students with as many questions as you choose. Here I chose 2 questions. They can work at their own pace as long as you don't change the screen on them. And then you can see your students' answers. You can also share the screen with them so they can see the results on their own device. So those are the interactive activities available through Nearpod to help you engage your students in their learning.